You remember the day the sky broke. It wasn't with a bang or a flash, it was with a single golden message. A signal broadcast across your entire system. The Gilded Edict, they called it. A declaration from an empire you never knew existed. An empire named the Gilded Hegemony. They were perfect, ancient, and powerful. Their ships were works of art. Their worlds were pristine gardens. And they had judged you. Humanity was a pest, a chaotic species in a tidy cosmos. Your art was noise. Your expansion was a disease. Your very existence was an impurity. The edict was calm and cold. It offered no room for negotiation, no chance for surrender. It simply stated a fact. Your species was marked for total extermination. A janitorial action on a star-born scale. You were cosmic vermin, and the exterminators were coming. Their first wave proved their point. Your best fleets met them at Jupiter. Gleaming human warships, the pride of Sol. They were vaporized in minutes, not beaten, erased. The hegemony ships were untouchable. Their weapons were rays of pure, clean light. Their defenses were flawless shields of energy. Your missiles were gnats. Your lasers were fireflies. It was a massacre, elegant and absolute. Earth's governments collapsed in a day. Panic gave way to a quiet, cold dread. Your end was not a possibility. It was an appointment, a scheduled cleansing. The golden ships of the hegemony took their positions. They orbited your worlds with silent patience. They were waiting for the final command, the one that would scour all life from your home. This was how your world was meant to end. Not in fire, but in a quiet, orderly sweep. From the ashes of your pride, a plan was born. It was not a heroic charge. It was not a brilliant counterattack. It was an insult. Their hegemony worshipped perfection. They valued order, purity, and grace. Their entire culture was built on it. So you would give them the opposite. You would fight their gleaming perfection with your mess. You would answer their purity with your filth. The idea started in the dark web forums, the hidden channels where society's outcasts met. It was laughed at first. A joke told in the face of annihilation. But the laughter died down. The joke started to sound like a strategy. If you could not outfight them, you could disgust them. If you could not destroy their ships, you could defile them. It was humanity's last, desperate and deeply petty act. High command was shattered. Admirals were dead or in hiding. So the call went out to new leaders, the engineers, the salvagers, the forgotten workers, the people who knew how to make something from nothing. The plan was approved with a shrug. There were no other options left. The Gilded Hegemony expected a noble last stand. You would give them a cosmic middle finger instead. A final insult written in garbage. This is where you came in. You were a scrapper, a junker. Your life was spent in the asteroid belt's junkyards. You sifted through the wrecks of old freighters. You reclaimed forgotten mining drones. You knew the value of rust and broken things. To others, it was trash. To you, it was potential. You saw a working power conduit in a dead ship's spine. You saw a weapon mount in a busted cargo crane. The call came on a scrambled frequency. It was a grainy message from a provisional government. They were not asking for soldiers or pilots. They were asking for people like you, the scrappers, the welders, the renegades of the void. They needed your expertise in imperfection. They needed you to build a war fleet. Not from gleaming alloys and new technology, but from the garbage of your own civilization. You left your asteroid claim without a second thought. Everyone did. From the rings of Saturn to the orbital slums of Mars. The forgotten people of the system answered the call. You gathered in secret shipyards, hidden inside hollowed-out moons. The best minds of your generation were dead. Now it was the turn of the greasiest minds. You looked at the piles of cosmic junk, and you saw the birth of an armada. The work was hard and ugly. You took the largest asteroids you could find, chunks of iron and rock the size of cities. You hollowed them out with mining lasers. Inside, you built crude command decks. You bolted on scavenged engines, engines ripped from centuries-old cargo haulers. Most were barely functional. Their warranties had expired long ago, but they sputtered to life with a cough of black smoke. Then came the derelicts. The graveyards of space were harvested. You found dead freighters and forgotten colony ships. You found busted orbital stations and failed science vessels. You welded them together into monstrous shapes. A hospital ship became a carrier. Its cryopods were repurposed as torpedo tubes. A luxury liner's hull was reinforced with scrap metal. Its observation deck now housed a massive kinetic cannon. This was the trash armada. It was the ugliest fleet in the history of space. Nothing matched. Every ship was a unique monstrosity. One was a sphere of welded-together shipping containers. Another was a long spine of old fuel tanks. Rust was your armor. Leaks were a common feature. Your control systems were a nightmare of mismatched software. But it was yours, forged from your own waste. A testament to your stubborn refusal to die cleanly. The day of the first engagement arrived. The hegemony fleet moved from its orbit. They began their descent toward Earth. Their ships were perfect golden teardrops. They moved in flawless, synchronized patterns. Then your armada appeared. You emerged from behind the moon, a tide of rust, rock, and ruin. You did not fly in formation. You tumbled, a chaotic swarm of weaponized junk. There was a long silence on all channels. The enemy saw you. For the first time, the gilded hegemony hesitated. Then, their comms channels burst to life. It was not with threats or commands. It was with laughter. You listened to the intercepted signals. The aliens were laughing at you. Their perfect musical voices were filled with mirth. They found your fleet hilarious, a final, pathetic joke from a dying species. Their commanders called your ships unart, a blasphemy against the physics of starflight. They saw your spinning asteroid fortresses. They saw your lopsided, cobbled-together cruisers. They laughed until their voices echoed in your helmet. That laughter was the greatest gift they could have given you. It filled you with a cold, hard rage. You would show them just how funny your garbage could be. You gave the order to advance. Your attack was not a precision strike. It was a stampede. You called it the Junkyard Gambit. You did not fire lasers or plasma. You fired the junk itself. Your asteroid ships vented clouds of debris, a storm of scrap metal, broken machinery, and dust. The hegemony's advanced sensors were overwhelmed. They were designed to track elegant, fast-moving ships. They could not process a blizzard of chaos. Their perfect point defense systems went wild. Lasers sliced at random bolts and metal plates. They were trying to shoot a hurricane. Your fleet plunged into the cloud you had created. It was your shield, your camouflage. The enemy could not get a clean lock. Their targeting computers returned strings of errors. To them, the space between you was just noise. To you, it was home. You closed the distance inside this storm. Your own sensors were useless too, of course. You flew by instinct and crude radar. Collisions between your own ships were common. But it did not matter. Your ships were built to be dented. A new scratch was just another badge of honor. You were a fist of pure, unrefined chaos, and you were about to punch the face of God. The impact was not glorious. It was filthy. Your lead asteroids, the biggest you had, slammed into their lines. They were not meant to destroy. They were meant to defile. The asteroids crumbled on their shields, not in a clean explosion, but in a messy, grinding smear. Rock dust and iron filings coated their golden hulls. It was like throwing a mud ball at a masterpiece. Your smaller ships followed through the gaps. You used magnetic grapples and crude boarding torpedoes. You latched onto their pristine ships like space barnacles. You did not try to breach their hulls with force. You sprayed them with paint, with industrial lubricants, with corrosive waste. You covered their perfect viewing ports with graffiti. You clogged their delicate sensor arrays with expanding foam. You were cosmic vandals. The hegemony crews were horrified. Their ship logs, which you later recovered, were telling. They spoke not of fear, but of revulsion. Their ships were no longer pure. They were tainted, dirty, and scarred. Their weapons still worked, but many crews refused to fire. They could not stand the thought of the filth outside touching their inner systems. The victory was not a conquest. It was a contamination. The hegemony fleet, disgusted and confused, turned and fled. The news of your victory spread like wildfire. Humanity, on the brink of extinction, had won. You had not destroyed the enemy. You had annoyed them into retreat. There was celebration, but it was strange. You had won with garbage. It was a victory both heroic and slightly embarrassing. You had proven that sometimes the best weapon is a bad attitude and a whole lot of junk. The gilded hegemony was stunned into silence. Back in their perfect star systems, they debated. The transmission you intercepted was from their High Council. It was filled with disbelief. This could not have been a real battle. It was a fluke, a statistical anomaly, an act of such profound vulgarity that it broke the rules of civilized warfare. They could not accept it. Their arrogance was your greatest shield. An elder, once, the hegemony's leader, addressed his people. His voice was like chimes in a gentle breeze. He called your tactic a tantrum of a lesser species. He assured his empire that purity would always triumph, that order would inevitably restore itself. He dismissed your trash armada as a one-time trick, a desperate, disgusting act that could never work again. They refused to learn from their defeat. To them, analyzing your tactics would be like studying filth. It was beneath them. They concluded their sensors were simply offended by the debris. They ordered their fleets to be recalibrated, to filter out the visual noise of your junk. They did not see a new form of warfare. They saw a mess that needed to be ignored. Their pride had blinded them, and you were about to take full advantage of it. Your own leaders saw the truth. This was the way forward. The junkyard gambit was not a fluke. It was the key to your survival. High Command, now made of scrappers and engineers, doubled down. The call went out for more trash. Every landfill on Earth was excavated. Every orbital scrapyard was stripped bare. You had won a battle with a pile of garbage. Now you would build a mountain. The scale of the operation grew. You were no longer just strapping engines to asteroids. You were building weapons of mass disruption. You created gunk cannons. They fired high-velocity streams of semi-liquid refuse, old plastics, industrial sludge, and medical waste. It was designed to stick to enemy hulls. It would block their energy vents and ruin their heat radiation. It was a truly disgusting weapon. You built shrapnel bloom mines. These were hollowed-out asteroids filled with trillions of tiny metal shards. When triggered, they would not explode. They would burst, creating a permanent, dense cloud of junk, a minefield of pure mess. You even weaponized bad ideas. You found old failed experimental drives, the ones that were too unstable or too dirty. You bolted them onto ships designed to be unmanned. Chaos drones, you called them. Their only purpose was to be unpredictable. Your fleet grew into a true monster. It was a sprawling, ever-expanding ecosystem of refuse. It had no rhyme or reason. No two ships were alike. It was a testament to human ingenuity, the ability to turn absolutely anything into a weapon. The hegemony was preparing for a cleaner, more orderly rematch. They had no idea you were busy building a bigger, better, and messier insult. The second act of this cosmic comedy was about to begin. Your next target was chosen carefully. It was not a military outpost or a fortress world. It was a symbol. The planet of Xylos, a jewel of the hegemony, a world famous for its pristine beauty. Its continents were perfectly sculpted. Its oceans were crystal clear. Its cities were architectural wonders. There was no industry on Xylos, no pollution. It was a planet-sized art gallery, and you were about to crash the opening. The siege of Xylos was not a conventional invasion. You did not land troops. You did not bombard from orbit. You brought the junkyard to them. Your Armada arrived in their system. The local defense fleet, confident and proud, moved to intercept. They had their new sensor filters. They were ready to ignore your debris fields. They expected another cloud of simple scrap metal. You gave them something far worse. You launched your gunk cannons first. Great streams of multicolored sludge shot through the void. It sailed past their ships and entered the planet's atmosphere. The hegemony commanders watched in horror. Their screens showed the filthy rain falling on their perfect glass towers, falling on their serene marble gardens, falling into their pure blue oceans. The effect was immediate. The Xylos defense fleet broke formation. Their primary mission was to protect the planet's purity. They abandoned the fight with your Armada. They turned back to try and intercept the falling sludge. They deployed atmospheric shields and cleaning drones. Their war footing was gone, replaced by a frantic, desperate janitorial effort. They were no longer soldiers. They were a cleaning crew, and they were losing. You brought your beautiful, terrible chaos to their home. While they were busy scrubbing their skies, you dealt with their fleet. You deployed the shrapnel bloom mines, creating impassable walls of junk in their path. You herded them, controlled them with your filth. Their golden ships became trapped, hemmed in by your carefully placed fields of spinning, jagged metal. Their retreat was a panicked flight. They scraped their own hulls on your debris. The sounds of their pristine ships being scarred echoed on your comms. You did not destroy a single one of their ships, but you left them dented, stained, and humiliated. You left the jewel of their empire under a permanent, ugly haze, a brown stain in its upper atmosphere, a constant reminder of your visit. You had not conquered Xylos. You had vandalized it. This was the turning point. You realized you were not just fighting a physical war. You were fighting a war of perception. The hegemony's greatest strength was their psychology, their belief in their own flawless nature. And that belief was now their greatest weakness. You could not break their ships, but you could break their spirit. You weaponized their own disgust against them. Your propaganda department was born. It consisted of artists, marketers, and internet trolls. Their job was to amplify the filth. You broadcast images across the galaxy, images of their golden ships covered in your graffiti. You showed their perfect world of Xylos with its new, ugly sky. You set the images to their own classical music, a perfect mockery of their culture. You even developed a new kind of psychological weapon. The meme torpedo. It did not explode with energy. It exploded with data. It would attach to an enemy hull. Then it would hack their internal comms systems, not to steal data, but to post things. Insulting jokes, crude animations of their leaders, an endless stream of humanity's worst internet humor. Their crews were not in danger. They were just being relentlessly annoyed. The effect on their morale was devastating. Hegemony crews became paranoid. They spent more time cleaning their ships than training. They developed new rituals of purification. Some ships refused to go into battle. They did not want to risk getting dirty. Your strategy was working better than you could have imagined. You were fighting a war of ideas. And your idea was that being a little messy was nothing to be ashamed of. It was a superpower. The leader of the gilded hegemony could take no more. Elder Ones was a being of immense age and power. He had guided his empire for millennia. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. But he had never seen anything like you. Humanity was not just a pest. You were a philosophical threat, a challenge to the very concept of order. Your chaos was a contagion, and it needed to be purged. His rage was a cold, silent thing. He appeared before his high council. His form shimmered with contained energy. He spoke only one word: enough. The time for elegant solutions was over. The time for surgical strikes was past. He would no longer try to outmaneuver you. He would not try to ignore your filth. He would simply erase you, utterly and completely. He gave the order to assemble the Grand Fleet. Every ship from every corner of their vast empire was recalled. Their most powerful dreadnoughts, their most ancient and holy battlecruisers. This was not a fleet for a battle. It was a fleet for an apocalypse. Its purpose was not to defeat you. It was to sterilize your entire sector of space, to wipe away every trace of your chaotic existence. He, Elder Ones, would command it himself, to ensure the job was done with absolute, final purity. Faced with the coming apocalypse, you did not despair. You prepared. The Grand Fleet was too big to fight, too powerful to disable. You could not defile every ship. You could not clog every sensor. You needed a new strategy, a final, ultimate expression of your junkyard philosophy. If they were bringing a great fleet, you would bring a great wall, a wall of trash. You began to build your ultimate weapon. You called it Project Singularity. The idea was simple and insane. You would gather every piece of junk you had, every derelict ship, every asteroid, every scrap of metal. You would bring it all to one point in space, the designated battleground. You would create a man-made nebula, a dense, swirling vortex of pure, concentrated garbage. The entire human race worked on this project. You towed dead ships from every corner of the system. You shattered moons and herded the fragments. You emptied your cities of every last piece of refuse. It all went into the singularity, a swirling sphere of wreckage that grew larger every day. It was a monument to your mess. At its heart, you placed your most unstable weapons, your chaos drones, your gunk cannons, your failed experimental drives, all primed to go off at once. It was not a bomb. It was a trap, a singularity of junk. The day came. Your sensors screamed their warnings. A wave of perfect energy signatures appeared at the edge of the system. The Grand Fleet had arrived. It was a breathtaking sight. Thousands of golden ships, arranged in a perfect crystalline formation. They blotted out the stars. At their center was a vessel of impossible size, the personal flagship of Elder Ones. It shone with the light of a captured star. Your trash armada was pathetic in comparison. You were a handful of rusty ships hiding on the edge of the system. You were the bait. Your real weapon, the singularity, waited in the darkness, a silent, swirling cloud of cosmic garbage. The Grand Fleet did not slow down. It moved with the certainty of a natural disaster. Its target was Earth. You were just a final piece of litter to be swept aside. As they approached the singularity, their sensors picked it up. Their commanders paused. They saw it as just another, larger debris field, an obstacle to be navigated. Elder Ones gave the order to proceed. He would not be delayed by your trash. He ordered his fleet to increase power, to push through the cloud with sheer force. It was the last mistake he would ever make. His fleet entered the edge of your junk nebula. Their powerful shields deflected the larger pieces, but the smaller bits, the dust and the shrapnel, began to sandblast their golden hulls. The perfect finish was scoured away. Then you triggered the trap. From the heart of the singularity, your chaos drones activated. Their unstable drives tore holes in space-time. Your gunk cannons fired, flooding the nebula with sticky, corrosive sludge. The Grand Fleet was inside a blender, a tidal wave of cosmic garbage, energized and weaponized. Their perfect formations shattered. Ships collided in the thick, soupy chaos. Their sensors were not just blind, they were screaming. The pure, clean energy of their systems was being fouled. Their weapons overloaded, their engines choked on the filth. The flagship of Elder Ones, once a shining star, was now just another piece of junk in the storm. He was no longer a god. He was just another victim of your glorious, beautiful mess. The war was over. The Grand Fleet was not destroyed. It was lost, trapped and disabled inside the permanent nebula you had created. A new monument in your solar system, a tomb of junk for a proud empire. You had won, not with power, not with technology, but with spirit. The stubborn, messy, and unbreakable spirit of humanity. You had faced perfection and answered with imperfection. You had proven that chaos has a power all its own. You did not conquer the gilded hegemony. You broke them. Their empire fractured. Their belief in their own purity was shattered forever. They left you alone, retreating to their tidy corners of the galaxy. They wanted nothing more to do with your messy, unpredictable species. And you were left with the spoils of war. A system full of wreckage, a reputation for inspired madness, and a future you had made for yourselves. You look out at the stars now. They seem different, less orderly, more interesting. The galaxy is not a pristine garden to be tended. It is a chaotic, wonderful, and messy place. And you are its new guardians, the inheritors of the mess. You have taught the cosmos a valuable lesson, that there is beauty in the broken, there is strength in the flawed, and that sometimes the best way to win a war is to be the one willing to get your hands dirty. Your trash armada saved you, and in doing so, it gave the entire galaxy a new kind of freedom. The freedom to be gloriously, wonderfully imperfect.